Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast with Seline Fierro. Celine is co-founder and CEO at Oakleo. Oakleo is a creator-first platform that allows creators all over the world to share audio content to cultivate their fan base. So basically, in a very simplistic way, it's like porn but audio. So you'd listen to someone guiding you through the sexual experience, and yeah, it's pretty fancy. It's a cool app. Hopefully, I'll be working with Celine to grow our pod, and we're gonna discuss about everything from sex to sex tech to ethics to um, forgot the name of that app. OnlyFans, yeah. From OnlyFans and porn and everything between, Pornhub as well. If we can, I watched a documentary that was quite interesting. Mind Geek. I'm from Montreal, and Mind Geek are headquartered there. And yeah, shed some light on the topic. This podcast is presented by podbuyer.com. That's my podcasting agency. If you want to start, scale, or be invited to a pod, find sponsors, or monetize a podcast, you can go to podbuyer.com. Celine, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about Oakleo?
Thank you, Charles, for having me. It's a pleasure being here. So I am Celine, and I live in Stockholm, but I was born in Argentina. I'm half Swedish, half Argentinian, and but I came to Sweden when I was around 3 years old. So I grew up here in Stockholm, and I started Oakleo 3 years ago, and I was just fascinating about the explosion of toys, and started experimenting with the womanizer or the satisfier. I don't know who was first, but the air vibrator. And I started listening to audio while using it, and it was such a good experience. And so I thought I must do something in this space. So that's how it all started. And for me, it comes from a genuine interest in wellness, and I think sexual wellness or sexual exploration is a huge part of our overall wellness. So that's how I'm interested in this space from the beginning. Throughout my whole life, I've been very interested in what makes people feel happy, and increase their anything that comes to, exactly, increase life experiences. So yeah, that's the story. And it started as an app where we recorded content, and during the period we get in contact with a lot of creators, and switched gear last year into a creator model where the creators publish their own content, because we realized there were so many talented people out there who was already creating this kind of content, but with no good platform for monetizing audio erotica specifically. So that's how we got into the creator economy, and a lot of similarities with other platforms, like you mentioned, OnlyFans or Pornhub.
And how did you tell your parents about like that new business? Like how did that conversation go?
Actually, my father passed away earlier, so I didn't have the conversation with him. And my mother, I don't think she passed away 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago. So I didn't really talk a lot to her about it. But I guess here in Sweden, sexual wellness or sexual exploration isn't as taboo as in many other countries. So I don't think I wouldn't have a problem with explaining why I believe listening to audio or exploring your sexual desires by listening to audio is something that I feel is a hard topic to talk about with anyone.
And where is it taboo in the world, and why is it taboo?
I don't know. I think it could be considered as more taboo in America, for example. A lot of our creators are based in America and are Americans. And I think there is a stronger the church has like more is more established there compared to in the Nordics. So I guess sexual liberation is a little bit shamed by the church, I guess. It could be. And in general, the sexual education isn't very widespread in the US, from what I understand. I think that's why also they are bigger consumers of porn, because they need to get information from somewhere. So yeah, I guess.
Yeah, or they need to get that energy out, and usually in psychology, what is repressed, it only grows stronger, especially with our human brains, because we know that something exists, this fantasy and so forth. Um, the counter side to that, for example, with porn is that it's like a gateway, you start with weed, then you go with cocaine, and then you end up in heroin. Well, not everyone follows that path, and in porn it would be to start with normal stuff, then go into hardcore, and then go into bestiality, for example. What do you think about that gateway argument?
I think it is better that we so first of all, we need to draw the line, what's like good and bad. And we cannot say that porn is bad. There are or like, how do we define porn? Is that two people having sex in front of a camera? Because that happens in a lot of movies as well. So first we need to define it, and then we need to identify what kind of porn is good and what kind of porn is bad. And I mean, 70% of the men across the world watch it regularly, and 30% of the men across the world, women across the world, watches porn regularly. So I think it's clear that we have this need for self-pleasure and sexual inspiration, and we all crave it, as you said too. So I think it's better that we explore it instead of quieting it. I think quieting it's more harmful. So the questions then become, okay, but what should we agree on as a limit to when it becomes overly exaggerated? Is that the type of content we are consuming, or is it how much we're consuming it? I can draw an example with betting. For example, here in Sweden, I don't know if you have the same in America, but the betting websites has responsibility that if there are players who show an addictional behavior, they have to report it to the authorities, and we need to support those people who could be considered as addicted. So then the betting companies has to contact that person and say, hey, you are we believe that you're addicted. Contact this instance to get help to get rid of this addiction. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but that's how it's working in Sweden. We actually have a case in that right now, where a person was spending a lot of money and showed this addiction behavior on a betting website, and that betting website is now under they have some sort of law situation regarding that they should have stopped him from spending this amount of money. And I think it would be a good idea to see, okay, what kind of behavior shows addictional behavior in porn and what we could do about it. Because I don't think that we should first of all not let people consume it, because that could, I don't think that's a good idea. and the other, it's hard to say this is good, this is bad, because everybody has different
philosophies. Yeah.
Exactly. As long as it's not illegal, as long as it's not harming, etc., then of course I think that shouldn't be allowed to be filmed or be produced.
Right. I'm also a libertarian, and I obviously believe that everyone should do whatever they want as long as it doesn't harm other folks, you know. And the argument for porn, I mean, historically, us men, we used to kidnap women and rape them and make them our wives, you know. Let's remind ourselves that we're very much animals, and I think that there's definitely progress when you look at it from that way. To your point, in the European Union and European countries, most of the time, yes, they're very progressive when it comes to laws. I had the CEO of Bet Blocker on my pod, and they're like gambling addiction Chrome extension so that they block this website. I don't think that blocking is the solution here, but education, and that's the challenge, right? You're educating a primal brain that all it wants is like ejaculate, sort of. And yeah, it's like, what do we do? Do we provide it information? Do we provide it support? And then it's a very tough question, because I mean, I pictured this in my head, but it's not necessarily the reality. It's probably more nuanced, but it's like this person that I don't know has been bullied their full lives and is living in their parents' basements, and they're furiously masturbating pretty much like their full evening after going to a boring 9 to 5. Well, is that the best scenario for that person? If they find happiness into this, sure. Now, the only danger with this, and the argument would be that the gateway, that if these people, you know, they want to take it to another level, and then they start to want, I don't know, to rape, you know, if they get into rape porn, and they want to do that on society. But are you aware of like some studies on porn and the effects on society? Is it like a net positive effect? Because I watched Pornhub / MindGeek documentary. To me, it was pretty simplistic documentary, you know. I think it was weirdly portrayed, but a couple of lessons. I mean, Pornhub, they block some folks in some states. I think they're playing their cards right, and I do think that they can be an added value to society. But me, there's the gateway argument, and then the other, just before I let you speak, because I'm rambling here, is basically to take the power out of men, not in the sense that, oh, men should dominate society, but I do believe that we have a boys to men problem in this society. Like, most men are actually boys. They're not leaders. They're not leading their communities. They're emptying their balls on porn instead of using that drive and that testosterone to accomplish and protect and build stuff that scales. So first, do you think that, you know, like, some folks might want to take it to another level through the outlet of porn, the gateway thing? And second, do you feel that porn is kind of taking the mojo out of some men that could build some greater things, but instead are addicted to it?
So I think that to some extent, yes, that it could be a harming behavior for those people who are become addicted, just as people could be addicted to anything else, whether that is alcohol or betting or sugar for that matter. And I think that's why it should be more common to be in-logged while consuming this kind of content, because then you can reassure of the person's age, you can reassure of how much content that person is consuming, what type of content, but also how much money they spend, just like a betting website. And in that way, we can make sure that people all over the world can still be explore things and and use this as a self-pleasure sometimes. And then we can take care of those who would be considered as addicted and recommend help for them. Basically, maybe have them use their energy to other stuff. But I think it's kind of interesting, because if we see a male behavior of someone who is spending a lot of time and a lot of money on porn, versus a woman buying a lot of toys and sitting home in the bathtub, with bubbles and drinking a glass of champagne or tea and masturbating, that is considered something beautiful and something that we that we want women to do. But whereas men, it's something dirty, ugly, and addictive, and I don't know what this comes from, because I think masturbation or sexual exploration or inspiration should be beautiful in both cases.
It's really funny, and you and I, we talked about that last time, and yeah, for women it's glamorous, it's like freedom, right? It's expression. And for men, my vision is, yeah, like in this dark basement with a box of Kleenex, and it's like this dark thing.
Yeah, and it's
Huh.
a lonely guy who don't have any options,
Yeah.
who probably could be a terrorist, and and I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's just that me, I have a man mindset, like a lot of testosterone in my veins. And for example, right, us working together, for example, I kind of need to keep myself in check, because money is great. Like I pursue money, but the question is, like, if I get deep into porn and into yeah, OnlyFans, for example, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are making lots of money with that. And my question for myself is sort of like, where should I take this on my end, because with you'd be my first potential client into this, and it's like exploration, right? Me, I'm a serial experimenter. I love experimenting stuff and getting data, because if I don't, like, how can I know? But then, like, I can picture a very capitalist Charles that would start helping, these OnlyFans creator and make a shitload of money. So where does that stop? To me, it's like, or where does that start? It's like, can I get data on the topic? Do these OnlyFans creator really help out people? Because on their side, I love the fact that it can be an outlet of creative expression. I'm very much for that on the creator side, right? And that's good. Historically, some women, right, were prostitutes, and that was terrible. Sexual disease, murders. How many prostitutes have been killed? Like, since they're somewhat the lower strata of society, that it's not been accounted, but I can
Also,
certainly
they haven't got paid fairly, and it
also
hasn't been on their own conditions most of the
also
time, I guess.
yeah. So on that side, I think it's beneficial. Now, on the other side, like me, I'd love to conduct research on their users, because, and you know about that. You could tell me that, like, users, most of the time, it's, well, sometimes I'd like to say it's more than sex. I think sex is like the connections, like the serotonin. But some of these men, they how do you say, they're fans of these women's. They talk with them, they buy stuff from them, and they want to get them to know them personally. They're like their girlfriends. So is that accurate? And also, if you can talk about AI girlfriends, and yeah, the girlfriend side of it, not the sexual part of it. What is your opinion on this?
Well, I think that uh, the creator economy in this space is very, it's a very good extension of the adult industry, just because, as we talked about, the women and the men, for that sake as well, they can work on their own term, they set their own prices, and they own their content, compared to a lot of content that is on free websites like Pornhub, as we saw in this documentary, where someone just uploads something and it's not in the creator's control. In all the creator platforms, the creator has control over their content. And I think it's also good for creator websites, because when people are logged in, you can also track their behavior. So it's much easier to find those who show this behavior addiction. But it's obvious that there is a lot of men out there who need to feel seen and are willing to pay for that. Is that good or bad? Because, as you said, I don't think it's always about getting off. It's also more that you kind of get to know who this person is. You fall in love with someone's voice, or in someone's visual, or someone's personality, and you're willing to spend a lot of money to be with that person, whether that is digitally or whether it's digitally, and whether that is a real person or an AI person. And I don't know, is that is that something that is harmful, and what's the alternative?
Yeah, because if it's not porn, it might be antidepressant drugs, so it might be another outlet, it might be something darker and more negative for society. I think like everyone should have some kind of psychological help, because the mistake that I often make is like, oh, porn is not scalable for Charles, so it's not for anyone. Well, Charles has privilege, Charles has a brain, a heart, and I have a bunch of tools that I self-acquired, sure, but that a lot of people do not have, so I think, yeah, some form of education and psychological support, and I mean, if these folks are happy with it, as long as they're not harming society, then I think it can be a good thing. Now, I want to ask, for a company like MindGeek or Pornhub that scaled porn very much, they're quite good at what they do. The SEO part of it, and the way they're growing the business. If you pair that with AI and really scale porn to a maximum level, let's assume that most of our human brains, of society's human brains in men, they're quite dumb, and they're driven by porn, by their dicks, they think with their dicks. What would be the outcome of a society in which you have a perfect AI companion that every time satisfies your needs, every time satisfies your love needs? So it's a girlfriend, it's a sexual partner, quote unquote. Do you think that scaling porn the way it is with AI would bring society to a positive place in, let's say, 5 years from now? Or could it go wrong in some sense? Could it enslave a bunch of people?
Wow, that's a very interesting and philosophical question, and I don't know. Do we think that those people who are addicted to porn, is that the same people who could be or are addicted to other things like alcohol or drugs or sugar or I don't know, working out, which I believe it's
Working out is good, though.
It's a positive addiction, probably. But I think in general, that's why I like audio a lot, because in audio you hear a person and you picture that person in your mind, and sure, it could be as addictive as well, but still, from a woman's perspective, you don't compare yourself too much to the visual situation or the person who is in front of you. You picture yourself with the person you're hearing in a situation you create in your own mind. And I think, at least from a happiness standpoint, I think it has some positive effects. So I think in this arena where we talk about all these kinds of stuff, whether it's good or bad or harmful, I think it's good to see, okay, what kind of alternatives are there? and create companies platform that makes people be able to explore their sexual desires, connect with other people in a safe environment rather than shutting it down. So I think, and when it comes to AI, I think it's harmful as AI in general. Like if you believe that AI is going in the wrong direction and it has control over us and could be smarter than us, then sure, it would have a negative effect. But if the AI girlfriend or AI boyfriends out there that people connect with instead of normal human people and behavior, if those comes from a good place, I think it's positive. But if it comes from a negative place, then yeah, it could be harmful.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, well, it's like Ocleo is a more fancy version of it. You know, it's cleaner and yet gives you space for your own visuals. So I guess that people that can visualize stuff with their minds and their third eye sort of can have more fun in there. And yeah, it's less attacking on the senses and so forth. So it's certainly interesting. As a founder, like where do you draw boundaries with co-workers or your co-founders? Is it sometimes awkward to speak to folks? They know that you're in the sex industry and they go a bit too far. How do you deal with that?
No, as I mentioned before, I have no problems to talk about audio porn or sexual exploration or self-pleasure and not internally. We draw the line in our company to things that are illegal. So we don't allow, for example, things that are illegal like rape or taking drugs during sex or drugs in general in the audios. So yeah, there's where we draw the line in the content creation, and yeah.
Interesting. Where can people find out more about you, Celine, and the company?
On our website, and I'm not very active personally in social media. Well, I am on LinkedIn, and we have both a TikTok and an Instagram where Ocleo is quite active, and people can always email me and us if they have any questions or want to get in contact with us or our creators and want to establish on the platform. But we welcome creators from all over the world and all genders, and also users to explore voices and explore content.
Well, thank you so much, Celine. That was Seline Fierro and Charles Cormier for another CEO Wisdom podcast.